Hey guys, welcome to this week's vlog. So today we're going to be talking about fear. And fear is something that I know we have all experienced. It's just one of those human emotions that everyone experiences, and it's important. It's an important emotion. And if you listen to this week's meditation, it was one that is just there to help you work through your fear and then overcome it. Because fear is something that we will all experience, and we can experience on a very small scale or a very large scale. And, every time she does that. So you can experience fear on a large scale or a small scale, and I think it's something that even just like on the tiniest little scale, maybe you experience it every day. So I believe that fear tells you a lot about yourself. So when you have the sensation of fear, and when you start to get that feeling, whether it's big or whether it's small, it tells you a lot about who you are and what is on your mind and what's bothering you. And it tells you so much more than just, oh, I must be afraid of this. No, it tells you so much more than that. If you can step back and look at it, it will tell you so much more. So what I mean is if you look at a fear, and there is a book that I love, called The Yamas and the Niyamas. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it before. But anyways, there's a line in there and it says, is this fear keeping you alive, or is this fear keeping you from living? And a fear that is keeping you alive, right? Like if I were camping, and which I don't really camp, so I wouldn't do. But if I was camping and a bear came into my campsite, I would be afraid. But that fear is keeping me alive, because the actual, my mind is going, danger, there is a bear, and a bear might attack you and eat you, and that is a real fear that is keeping me alive. I'm not gonna go, oh, what a cute bear, and then go up and try to hug it or something. No, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna get out of there. And that is a fear that is keeping me alive. Or, a fear of a shark or something. There are fears that keep us alive. But the problem is those fears that keep us from living. And I would say this is where a lot of the fear comes from. And an example of that in my life is, so I always have like this moment. So when I record these vlogs, or I record my podcast episodes, and then I put them out there in the universe, when I hit that publish button or that send button or whatever it is, I get this feeling of like fear. Or when I'm editing the video, like when I just am getting it ready to actually be able to like publish it, and I watch it just to make sure like the audio is there and all of that, and I'll watch it, and then I just kind of get like this fear. But why? Like what does that fear tell me about myself? So if I can step back and I can look at it and I can say, okay, that fear tells me that there's something about what I'm doing that gives me a moment of pause. That fear tells me that perhaps I don't actually have a fear of hitting the publish or send button, but I have a fear of sharing my true, authentic, vulnerable self with others, with people that I know, and a lot of people that I don't know. And that to me is really scary, and it's a fear, and that is a fear that is keeping me from living. If I let that fear of, oh, what if I share my thoughts, and I share who I am, and I share my message with someone, and it gets rejected, or maybe someone says something mean back, or someone, says, well, those ideas are stupid, that could stop me. That easily could stop me. I could easily just say, okay, I am too afraid of what might happen if I put this out in the universe, and I don't know what's going to come back at me. That easily could stop me from doing this. But when I look at it and I see, okay, my fear is probably actually a fear of being vulnerable and sharing my true self with others and not having it accepted. Okay. That tells me so much more about myself than just, oh, I'm afraid to hit a button. or I'm afraid to be out there, or whatever it is. And that's when I believe that we can really use that fear to tell us about ourselves. And that is something that really could stop me from living, because as scary as it is, I want to be able to share this. I want to be able to podcast and share my thoughts on things, and share my authentic self. And every time I teach, every time I do a teacher training, or I take on like a new a mentee or whoever it is, I want to be able to teach and share. And being able to do that means I'm going to have to share my true and authentic self and be vulnerable. And I might not always get back what I want. Like, not everyone's going to like it, but that's okay. But if I can step back and look at this fear, and I experience fear every single day, every day. It might even be something small. It could be even a fear of like my routine changing. Like, sometimes I'll get anxious because I'm used to things happening one way, and then all of a sudden they're happening a different way, and I'm like, oh, it's different. And it's just like this tiny little moment of like fear, anxiety. But what does that say about me? It's not the fear of, oh, I always take this way to work, and now all of a sudden there's a detour, I'm gonna have to go around. Like, okay, that's a pain. But what it's really telling me is that I enjoy, I want to know what's coming up, and I want to know how I'm going to handle it. And if a curveball gets thrown my way, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, surprise, then my body kind of reacts like, oh, and it goes into this little, like, it's almost like protect. And our bodies do want to protect ourselves from harm and from danger. But again, is that harm and danger, is it actual harm and danger? Is it that bear? Or is it something that's keeping us from living? Is my fear of not being accepted for what I share a bear, or just a belief that I have, or a fear that I have? And looking at that. And I also believe that a lot of fear can come from misunderstanding or not knowing. So a lot of times we assume, what is new or what is different must be bad, instead of saying, no, it's what is new, and what is different. And that you don't always have to be afraid of what's new and what's different. And you also don't always have to understand. I think there's a lot of times where, and myself included, where I kind of jump to conclusions about people or situations or things, and maybe I am fearful or unsure of them because I just don't know. But then I challenge myself to say, well, just because I don't know, that doesn't mean that it's bad. I could not know, and it could be equally as great. The thing there is not fear. The thing there is not knowing. And just because I don't know something doesn't mean it should automatically be something that I feared. Perhaps it's something that I should learn more about, or that I should try to understand, or just kind of grasp a little bit more. And so for me, at least, a lot of fear comes from unknown and misunderstanding, and just like not knowing what I don't know. And I mean, really, that's it. That's my thoughts on fear, is really just, is the fear keeping me alive, or is the fear keeping me from living? If the fear is keeping me alive, okay, good, great. My body and my mind are working the way evolution designed them to work. But if it's a fear that's keeping me from living, how can I step back? How can I look at it? What is it telling me about myself and about what's going on in my life? And then how can I work on that thing? I also sometimes, when I have fear, I think, okay, what is the worst case scenario? So when I think about, that fear I get when I share something new with someone, or even if I, post something on Instagram or whatever it is, and it's new and there's all these people going to be looking at it, like, what's the worst case scenario? Someone doesn't like it and they say something mean? Well, okay, it might sting for a minute. Maybe 2 minutes if I let it, but I mean, that's it. Is that really worth all my fear? I don't think so. And when I break it down, the worst case scenario, it doesn't seem that bad. Like I said, it might sting for a little bit, but it's not going to sting forever. So thinking, what's that worst case scenario? It's not usually as bad as you think it might be. So those are my thoughts on fear. I hope they didn't scare you. I'm not, that was silly. That was bad. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys listening, and I'll see you next week.